Is it recording? Yeah. We're going to have Kathy tell her recovery story. She's been absent for a couple years. And Kathy, it's all you.
Thank you, Rick. I'm Kathy, a compulsive eater,
And
I was asked to tell my story. I must say that my first instinct this morning was to run and hide. That is usually my MO of this type of thing, but I'm just going to go ahead and go with it. I brought some pictures, and I'll just be passing them around. I'm going to save these for last because they're the best ones. I've got written on the back on most of them an approximate year, so you can see what I was like before. I've always had a trouble with my weight. I'll start some of these over this way, and I'll let you just please through that. This was taken in 07, 08, something like that. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm horrified when I see these pictures, and the picture itself is motivation enough at times to keep going. Let's see. Something that I discovered is that, and it makes sense if you think about it, all behavior is learned. We don't grow up overeating. We learn that. You watch your parents, you watch other people, and that's where you pick up, different accents, how to walk, how to talk, that type of thing. My grandmother was a Slovak lady. She really knew how to bake, cook. She was an excellent cook. And I think the first time I saw her sneaking food, I was kind of shocked because it was one of those, you walk into the kitchen and she's doing something at the counter, and all of a sudden she knows somebody else is there, and then she just kind of, tries to wipe her mouth and, put things away, but I think that's where I really started to observe the sneaking food behavior. When I was growing up, I would go to the convenience store. It was a 7-Up, I think it was. It was not a 7-Eleven. I would ride my bike there. We're talking early 70s. I had $1. $1 would buy a lot of 5-cent candy bars, and I would spend my shoot the wad, spend it all, go back to my room and hide under the covers and read while I was eating all of my candy that I had purchased. My mom would try to come up, well, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. And I would, cover it under the covers, trying to hide everything. The mass quantities that I consumed, I am just amazed when I think about it. Entire cakes, pies, cookie batches, cookie dough. Sugar was my number one go-to. It was not unusual for us to have sweets for breakfast. That's what we did. My grandmother would make like a nut roll or a prune Danish or whatever, and that's what we had. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. One time I remember seeing something on one of those Maury Povich or whatever, I don't know, and they asked the question, if you've baked a pie for your husband and you've eaten a slice of it, how do you hide that from your husband? And I'm like, well, duh, you eat the rest of it and you make another one. I mean, that just was what I did. I was like a crack addict getting her fix, driving up to the you name it store, and speaking to the speaker. I would like, and just saying, whatever, the donuts, the cookies, the fried foods, and driving up to that window, and when that clerk was handing me a bag through the window of Krispy Kreme donuts, and I'm giving her my money, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am a crack addict. Crack, food is my crack. And I guess some of the triggers in the very beginning when I was younger, My parents fighting, my brother and I would sit on the top of the stairs. We could see over the wall into our kitchen Monday nights, and that was the show. My parents were fighting, arguing, and my brother and I would sit up at the top. We'd look over the wall, and we'd watch them fight. That's what we did. I think my brother learned too well, because he would come back at me. He always told me I was no good, I was stupid, I was a crybaby. What are you crying for? You're watching a TV show, you shouldn't be crying, that type of thing. I always had to be perfect. My father was in the show business, local show business. He was on the TV news, and everyone knew who we were. We had to look our best when we walked out that door. We had to have the clothes, we had to have the look, everything had to be perfect. Wear the mask. My father was very good at that. When he walked out the door, he was the star. He was that persona. But when he came in the house, he was the alcoholic. There was always something was wrong. Oh, there's dust on that floor. I gotta have a drink. So, and that's what I learned. If it wasn't perfect, that gave me the reason to eat. And later on, it was something for me to control, because nobody else had that control other than me. I've been dieting since I was 12. My mother took me to the doctor and gave me diet pills. Imagine that. 1970, that's what you did, amphetamines. And I think I lost 10 pounds, but then that was about it. I've been on every diet known to mankind, you name it, I've been on it. I've done the Richard Simmons Deal-A-Meal, I've done the Voxa, I've done BodyWise, I've done the fexofenadine, or whatever that little pill was that everyone, there you go, thank you very much, Fen-Phen. I did the Atkins, I did Weight Watchers. I mean, it was just, it got so tiring, but at my very lowest weight, I was 155 pounds. That's where when I met my husband, got married, moved about 400 miles away. My first time away from home, I gained 60 pounds that first year. And I was so desperate to get pregnant. I thought if I had a baby, that would give me somebody to love, somebody to take care of. I could not get pregnant. I went through the fertility drugs, the basal temperature. My husband had the sperm count thing. My next step was to go have my tubes blown, or whatever that's called. I don't know. And anyway, I finally got pregnant. I weighed 235 pounds when I was pregnant. The doctor told me that I should concentrate on losing weight instead of trying to get pregnant. My daughter was born with birth defects. She inherited a disease from my husband, who has tumors. We did not know that it was genetically passed on. We did not know that we had a 50% chance of having a child that would have this disease. So I went into isolation. That's what I do best. My daughter and I hid from the world. She began to grow tumors on her face. People would ask me if I was beating my child. If she, what is that bruise on her face? Well, it's not a bruise, it's a mark from her disease. I was accused of child abuse. I thought for sure that my daughter was going to be taken away from me, that I wasn't taking care of her, something, And so when we moved to Vermont, she was like 3 years old. Because of my husband's job, 1,400 miles away. I didn't know a soul. We were in a very backwoods town. It was interesting is the only word I can describe. Depression really sunk in at that point in time. Nothing was going right in my life. My husband was not the man that I thought he should be. Of course, I was trying to change him, which we all know that just does not work. My husband lost his job. We moved back to Illinois, lived with my mom and her second husband for 4 months. I lived in the same room that I grew up in, my old bedroom. My daughter lived in my brother's old room. My mother's second husband was a raging alcoholic. That was the first time when I actually thought that my father could have been an alcoholic, because at that point I thought being an alcoholic meant you're in the gutter, you've got the bottle in the brown paper wrapper, and I did not realize that you could be a functioning alcoholic. I was, of course, getting way into the food by now. The first time I went to OA was in 1990. They handed me a big book, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I am not an alcoholic. I don't understand why I have to read this book. They talked about what foods they ate that day, what the chocolate cake was on the counter and was calling their name, and I'm like, this is making me want to eat. I can't be part of this. So I didn't stay too long. Not too long after that, we moved to Tennessee. I had a very stressful job. I worked for a lady who, which is another long story, forced me into bankruptcy. I got another job working for a bipolar person that gave me more stress than I really, really wanted. Keith, my husband, had a quintuple bypass in 2003. He almost died. He coded. It took almost 2 minutes for them to bring him back. More stress there. I moved my mom out here. She died in 2004. More stress there. By this time, I was about over 300 pounds. 315, actually, to be exact. In 2011, I went to the doctor for a normal physical. My fasting blood sugar was 179. My A1C was 7.9, and he forced me to do something about my weight, do something about my eating. They had me on a low-carb diet. That was my first time charting food. Charting food sucks. I'm just going to say it. It does. Charting it, counting it, measuring it, all of that kind of thing. But it's something I had to do. I lost a little bit of weight, and he was very encouraged. He said, let's just keep going with that, diet and exercise. I exercised at least 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. And over the course of about 2.5 years, I released, they don't like you to say lost because that means you're going to get it back. I released 100 pounds, and I was really excited. That was the lowest I had been since before I was pregnant. And I got complacent. I thought, I can just have that bite of cookie. That cupcake, look at that icing. Cream cheese icing, doggone it. Just kept having one more bite after another, and before I knew it, I gained 30 of those pounds back. That's when I knew I had to do something else, and I remembered OA. I looked in the online, on the internet to find a meeting. I called this meeting here. I came here in September of 16. And I discovered a lot about myself, which I've got in another page that I'll share afterwards. But judgmental, perfectionist, control freak, self-centered, people pleaser, doormat, grudge holder, lazy. Oh boy, was I lazy. Am I lazy, I should say. Pride, arrogance, self-pity, fear. I mean, that's just a small amount on there. But and I'll pass this around for you all to look at later. But at the time, I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I thought I was the perfect person. I am the perfect person. I've got the Perfection Queen crown at home being polished right now, I'm sure, but that was my go-to. I had to be perfect, and being perfect, since nobody is perfect, that just drove me into the food. So what I did was I got a sponsor. Yay! That was the hardest thing I had to do, was get a sponsor, to try to find somebody that I thought would take me on. I was embarrassed. I didn't think anybody would even want to take me on. And what do I do? My sponsor had me to attend meetings. I attended 2 meetings a week. I found out abstinence is a 10-letter word. It really is. You ask a person what abstinence means, they can't tell you. They can only tell you what their abstinence means. And I was looking for something written down. Okay, I follow this step, then I follow that step. And that is what abstinence means. Abstinence for me has changed over the last 3 years, many different times. What does it mean? I honestly can't tell you. If you ask me right now, I can tell you what I do, but if you were trying to say, what can abstinence mean to you? I really don't have an answer. Food plan is an 8-letter word, and it's non-existent. Nobody can tell you what a food plan is. They can tell you what their food plan is, but everybody's food plan is different. And I think that that's the hardest thing to realize, is that being an alcoholic, being a drug addict, being a smoker trying to get off cigarettes, that type of thing, you know what to do. You stop doing whatever it is you're doing. Gambling, sex, it doesn't matter. But with food, we can't do that. We have to still eat. So we have to learn. We have to train ourselves, relearn what we should be doing. And a food plan was another word, a thing that I could not come up with. I had the hardest time with that. Diet is a cuss word. I did find that out. It is a 4-letter cuss word. My first sponsor, Diet, put her into an eating binge. So she did not want me to go on a diet. Diet just means something that we eat. It's like the lion at the zoo. They are on a diet. They eat whatever lions eat, and that is their diet. We have learned that diet means something you do for a short amount of time, and then you can go back to the way you were eating. Well, that just doesn't work. Anyway, we went through the big book a little bit. We did some step work. I got up to step 9, step 10, and I was not the most forthcoming sponsee. I would not do what my sponsor wanted me to do. Would not do the daily contact. I wasn't willing to work the program, stubborn, resistant, holding on to old ideas. So she released me, and I floundered, but I still kept coming to meetings. I got a second sponsor. I worked the steps with one-on-one with the help of the sponsor. We did the green workbook, the whatever it's called, the 12-step, whatever. Anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about. I worked on that for about a year with my second sponsor, and again, we got up to that point, 9-step, 10-step. I was not willing to do the daily contact. I got busy, whatever the case may be. And she released me. Then I floundered again, still attended meetings. I got my third sponsor. Now, how I first met my third sponsor, I might save that for after we get off the air. But anyway, food plan, again with the food plan. Get a food plan. What is up with these people? Get a food plan. Help me out. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. Well, they won't do that. They want you to learn how to do a food plan. Pretty much gave me the ultimatum, and that was crap or get off the pot, as my mother would say. Well, she wouldn't say crap, she'd say something else. Anyway. So it occurred to me, hey, maybe I should try something different. Hello. Instead of doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Insanity, that's what we all have. Eat a more balanced diet, more carbs, but good carbs. Well, that freaked me out because when I was on a low-carb diet, I was on like about 40 carbs a day. Now, anyone that knows carbs know 40 carbs ain't nothing. That's like, maybe a cup of broccoli, and that's about it. But what I found I was doing was I was substituting what I thought were good carbs. The first thing I did were the little bars, the little nutrition bars. Ooh, they're only like about 7 net carbs. So I can eat maybe 5 of them. Hey, that's not bad. I'm still under what my carbs, but I was substituting one thing for the other. So I was really nervous about this carb thing. Fruit, I did not eat fruit because of the sugar. With my high sugar, I was so afraid I was going to go back into the help me out. The diabetic, thank you. The diabetic thing, and I was so close to that before, and I had brought those numbers down. I did not want to go back to that. But my sponsor said, try it for 30 days, just for a month. What do you got to lose? If it doesn't work out, go back to what you were doing. What I was doing was not helping me any because I hadn't lost any more weight. I had plateaued. So I said, okay. So I tried to eat a more balanced diet. I ate more carbs, sugar, fruit, vegetables, I went back to eating a little bit of grain. I had not had, since 2011, I had not had pasta, rice, bread. Oh, bread was a killer. Oh my gosh, bread was a killer. White potatoes, white flour. I know they're missing one in there, but anyway, I had not any of those things. Oh, sweets, of course, pastry, cakes, pies, cookies, all of that kind of stuff. And it really scared me to take back some of the carbs. Even though they were good carbs, it really scared me. But I did it for a month. And after a month, I think I had lost maybe 5 pounds. And I was like, hey, it's working. And my sponsor was like, okay, well, let's go another month. So I did it a second month, and I'm down 12 pounds. And I'm like, hey, it's still working. And he says, okay, well, let's go for another month, you know. So I'm still traveling on this road, knowing that I need to add the exercise back because I haven't been exercising. Exercise does help. I've quit looking for that pill, that special mixture that you mix up and eat or drink every day. I've stopped looking for that because I know it's not out there. It's hard work. It's committing yourself to the program. It's committing yourself to doing what you don't want to do. In my case, the charting of the food, the planning the food. Planning is so difficult. Oh my gosh, I don't have time to plan. Yes, you do, because if you don't plan, then you're going to fail. You're going to eat something that you shouldn't, and then you're going to be off to the races. What I'm like now, I've released a total of about 130 pounds. My blood sugar is normal, and I've even checked my blood sugar after this because after a month, 2 months, I thought, okay, if it's going to be going back up again, I'm going to have to do something different. It was 103. I was very, very excited about that. I've been abstinent almost 3 years. I journal my food. I plan my food. I contact my sponsor 5 times a week. I attend meetings at least once a week. As I'm working the steps, I notice that I'm kinder to those around me. I don't expect to change people, especially my loved ones, because I have to worry about my own side of the street. God grant me the serenity. I have no cares in this world. I turn it over to Him. My daughter came home the other day. She's like, oh my gosh, they're laying off people at Kroger. What am I going to do? And I said, well, what do we need to do? God, grant me the serenity. And she rolls her eyes to accept the things I can. And she knows, you know. And I honestly do not, it's not that I don't care. That's a bad analogy. It's that I don't worry about it. I let God worry about it. And I truly have peace in my day and true happiness. I really do. I'm not saying that there's days when I don't get angry and upset and all that, because there are. But I think I would say like 95% of the time, I am a happy person. I feel better about myself. I commit my life to God every day. My prayer life has increased 1,000%. It really has. I read OA literature and the Big Book. I go to meetings. I do service. Service I cannot stress enough. The regional chair for our region, Region 8, told us that her first meeting, and she went to her first meeting kicking and screaming. She did not want to go. And somebody came up to her and gave her the key to the building and said, you're going to open up next week. And she was like, okay. But it made her come back. It made her come back, and it gave her, as a newcomer, that responsibility that, oh, people are depending on me. I have to be there. I have to open the meeting. And that is something that service, and when you start with service, you do something small. I took over the literature for the Saturday meeting. I inventoried it. I saw what was missing, what we needed to order, that type of thing. Something little. You can open up the meeting. You can chair a meeting. I'm the intergroup chair. I don't know how that happened. It just did. And it's no big deal. I just go. I preside over the meeting. I do get to go to the regional events, which is kind of neat. But service is something that is really, really something that everyone needs to do. When you get to a difficult situation, you practice the 3 P's. That is pause, prayer, and proceed. That's something I heard at one of the regional events, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that just makes so much sense. If you feel like you're getting out of control, you just pause, you stop. You assess yourself, you do prayer, and then you proceed. I don't have perfect adherence. I do my best one day at a time. You do the next right thing. If you screw up somehow, okay, I took a bite of a donut. What's the next best thing I should do? Well, don't finish the donut, for one thing. Instead of, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and keep going. Well, I got 1. Let's go for a dozen. Let's go for 2. Why not? And that was me in the before time. Never give up. Never surrender. I can't stress that enough. You just keep going. If it's not working, you try something else. Act like the Scouts. Be prepared. Have emergency food always available. This is something I learned from my sponsor. I thought, well, what kind of emergency food can I keep in my car? Well, there are packets of like tuna. They're already rinsed out. They're just, some of them come with a little spoon. You just spoon it out and you eat it. You can have little fruit, that doesn't require refrigeration. God doesn't give us anything we can't handle. That's another thing that I always have to tell myself every single day. You can't do it alone. Depend on God. Depend on God, but those around you, I don't even know what I said that. You can't do it alone, but you depend on God, but also depend on those around you. Keep your friends close. Keep the people in the program close, and turn to them when you need to. And this I just heard last night, and I just thought this was really cool, and I'm going to close with this. Scars tell us where we've been, but they do not have to dictate where we're going. Thank you for letting me share. And I did want to, sorry, go ahead.